Hey guys, and welcome back to another week of grosses, so let's get into it. Make sure to like, sub, comment, and follow me on Instagram. Up first, we have Juliet. 97% last week, and 1,014,299. This week, 97.50, and 939K. Again, Juliet has had a very good year so far, with a pretty underwhelming May and June. I don't think it's going to close anytime soon. It's recouped its investment. As long as it has a 9 or an 8 in front of it, it's A-okay, and it's not fallen past that this year. Boop, which did announce its closing, and this week's numbers clearly tells you why. 81% last week and 602K. This week, 73% and 539K. Vista Social Club, 99% last week, and 1,296,864. This week, 95% and 1,258,750. Cabaret, which is also closing, 93% in October, 93% last week, and 944K, 92% and 883K. So some pretty steep drops for all of these shows. And it is sad to say that many shows are closing, but I think the numbers are justified in their closing, as Cabaret needs to make $1 million per week in order to make its money. Dead Outlaw ended super strong, 74% last week, 94% this week, 681K this week, and I hope that it will come back one of these days. Death Becomes Her, 98% this week, or last week, and 1,458,333. This week, 94% and 1,355,373. Gypsy did have Audra in this week, and it fell significantly from 83% to 66%, and 1,287,580 to 995K. And I do think it will fall into a similar number, as Audra will be out all of this week. Hadestown, 99% to 98%, and 820K to 746K. Again, I think Hadestown could close in 2026. It's not had the worst year, but it definitely has struggled in 2025. Significantly the last 2 months. As long as it has an 8 or a 7 in front of it, it's doing fine, and it is. However, it has fallen into the 6 category a couple of times, 600K that is. So I do think the fall will be very indicative of how it goes forward, with how decent it's done this year. I don't expect it to close in January of 2026. If it does close next year, it's not going to be until later on, so I don't think it will close anytime soon. I think it will be here this time next year, but I think we're seeing a slow wind down. But again, there's nothing that is telling me this is in super danger. I would just keep an eye out for it. And if you are a fan of Hadestown, maybe go and see it again if you want to stay on for a couple more years. And again, it's been here for over almost 10 years, or not almost 10 years, but 6 years. And so the fact that it's gone on this long is very impressive. Hell's Kitchen, 94% last week, and 1,041,203 to 87%, and 907K this week. Just in Time sells out, and 1,286,048 to 1,279,899. And I want to know in the comments, if Just in Time didn't have Jonathan Groff, do you think it would do as well, and would you be interested in seeing it? Because jukebox musicals are historically do very well. I think the only jukebox musical that's failed was the Frank Sinatra one. But I wonder, just in time, Bobby Darin is not the most popular artist, and I think Jonathan Groff is the main attraction. So I'm very interested to know. I definitely do think it wouldn't have been as successful. I think it would have been successful, but not to the level that it is. Maybe Happy Ending, 102% this week, and last week 101. 1,281,052 last week, and 1,307,502 this week. Truly being the first original musical to do blockbuster numbers since Hadestown, and it actually did not decrease at all in June, which is very impressive. Mulan Rouge, 96% and 1,020,129 to 87% and 867K. Its worst year overall. I do think that this will close in 2026, maybe even in January. So if you are a fan, I would take high advantage of seeing it now because, again, Mulan Rouge has a weekly operating cost of $1 million. It's been losing $200,000 a week, and without a stunt cast, it does not work. But it makes sense. It's been here for many, many years, and it was very successful for a long time. Shows just die out. Mincemeat, 99% last week, 98% this week, 819K last week to 754K this week. Curves ended on a very high note. 80% to 93%, and 508K to 758K. 6, 88% last week to 80% this week, and 820K to 717K. 6 has done great over this past year as long as it has an 8 or a 7, and even a 6, it's doing fine. It definitely has faltered in the last 2 months, but it's had a pretty good year, and I do think this will be here for many more years to come, and the fact that it's doing this decent after being here for 3 years is very impressive. Stranger Things, 86% last week, and 1,140,302 to 80% this week, and 1,011,369. And I think this would be, I consider this a disappointment. If you want to, basically, you know, Stranger Things has not got the nostalgia factor that these older IP shows have gotten. It's been many years between seasons. It's a Dargo play. You need to catch up on more seasons. They're not marketing it the way they have. More in-depth analysis, go watch my other videos. But yeah, this is I wouldn't say a financial disappointment, but kind of an embarrassment. But again, I think if they had waited 20 years for when the show had ended, maybe they would have gotten something. And I definitely do think they are marketing this as you have to see this in order to see season 5, which you don't need to, but it gives you some vital clues. And one wonders, is the Stranger Things brand as big as they think it is? You know, Stranger Things is a binge-worthy show that gets attention for a couple of weeks, and then people kind of move on. Sunset, 97% for both weeks, and 1,827,541 last week, and 1,851,487 this week. So doing phenomenal in its final few weeks. Gatsby, 95% to 86%, and 1,096,886 to 966K. So that's done great, and it's actually done weaker numbers in the summer than when Jeremy and Eva left, but I think this has many years ahead of it, and as long as it has 1 million or 900 in it, it's 900,000 in its number, it's doing good. Outsiders sells out, and 1,354,761 last week, and 1,247,920 this week. So another fantastic week for the Outsiders. Overall, those are my thoughts on the box office. There was a show to kind of keep an eye out on. I guess you would put that at 6 in Hadestown, but I don't think those are going anywhere anytime soon. I think they will still be here this time next year, and Stranger Things definitely is needing to have a blockbuster somewhere in order to justify losing money. And Mulan Rouge is destined to close soon, I believe. And Gypsy, I think, could close. I would close it with Audra because clearly there's not enough support, not enough interest, and I think that's because there's been so many revivals, and it's not a universally beloved performance nor production. So those are my thoughts. Like, sub, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.